So I'm going to stop there because there could well be some questions. If there aren't, I can keep moving. But I thought for the moment I would just stop and see if anyone's got any questions that either I can answer or any of my colleagues here can answer as well. We'll focus just on the angel investing piece because we've got a panel coming up later where we'll be talking about the whole piece, and you're hearing lots more from other people. But if there are things that really strike you now or anything I can amplify, do shout. So I haven't been checking, Debbie, but I don't know whether there's been anything put in the box.
Jenny, I think Hattie Fawcett's got a question. Hattie, are you able to unmute yourself, or Debbie, could you unmute Hattie, or shall I ask the question?
I'm unmuted, Don.
Great. Hi, Hattie.
Hello, Jenny. Lovely to see you again.
That's a long time no see.
A very long time.
I know an awful lot of people, Don. That's the trouble. Yes.
I had a question. I was really interested in your advice. Don't take fees, and I heartily endorse that. If you're offering advice or being an NED, and you've invested, don't take that money back out in fees. That's pointless. I'm interested in your view on equity in exchange for advice, because there's a piece about teams valuing the information they get from you as an investor and acting on it, and a bit about opportunity cost of your time as an angel investor. So I'm interested whether you ever consider taking equity in exchange for the advice and time you're putting into a business.
Oh, thank you for that. No, that's a very good question. I mean, first of all, I'll just say one thing I didn't say about equity, and that is don't take too much equity. Okay, these are early stage businesses. They actually, interestingly, under the EIS, there's actual rules. You can't take more than 30% equity, but that's a lot already. You should be taking around 10, 15% of kind of early amounts of equity in the business, because they have got so much further to go as they build and grow and have to give away a lot more equity. So if someone offers you a small amount of money, I'll say this to the entrepreneurs, if anyone offers you a small amount of money for a lot of equity, walk away right away, because that's the dragon's den stuff that we all hate, because that's what they used to do. I'll give you 50K and I want, 50% of your business. What? Get off. Absolutely. So small amounts, only taking initial amounts of equity, because even you're putting more money in as time goes on. I mean, this is something you want to help build up. In terms of that, I think we have to be careful. First of all, someone who isn't giving you any money at all and says, I want shares in return for not giving you any money, that's not an angel, that's a mentor person, so that is not the same. Someone who's giving you a certain amount of equity, a certain amount of money in return for equity, and feels that there's huge potential in the business, in a way, options, can work. And some people do use options in that way. But the best options is through the enterprise management incentive scheme, by the way, which, by the way, if you haven't, please send me your views on this, because there's a big consultation about whether or not the government's going to keep it or not. It's a great way, really, to encourage team members, in other words, until you can afford a big team, to give them equity shares, options into the business as you build it and grow it together as a team. If investors want to take options in that way, then you need to be very sure of the value add. I mean, what angels do anyway is give value add. So you need to be quite clear what you're giving away in a business, giving people options, rather than them giving you more cash as you need it over time. So being very careful. The other reason is you end up with very many messy things on the cap table. And for anyone who's then relating to the next phase of venture capital funding, you need to be quite careful, because the venture capitalists won't like a messy cap table. Okay, that's the capital table where all of the shareholders are listed. So people have options. That's a complicated, messy little bit, because what is all that going to be about when the bigger funding comes in and so on? So I would be wary of as an entrepreneur, and as an investor, you need to be very clear why you're not, you're giving some money now and perhaps holding some back for later that you're going to give more money. Again, that's giving and taking at the same time. sorry, that's probably a bit of a lengthy thing, probably a bit of a rant. I think the most important thing is everyone needs to think about what equity means to the business as you're giving money to the business and taking their shares. You know, they're in, you know, it's a matter of trust, isn't it, and alignment.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And for me, it's about deliverables. If you're getting value from something, then you're willing to exchange something for that value. But if that value is intangible or a bit, you know, down the line, then I think it's harder to justify. But thank you, Jenny. It's really helpful.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Jenny. I know that there are any other questions. Please, everyone, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and that would be great. But just to fill in for a moment, Jenny, could you say a few words about the timescales from first seeing a pitch through to actually getting a checkbook out and handing over your cash?
I mean,
you talked about the exit timescales, but actually that's a really important window as well. What's your experience?
It is very important, Don. And I mean, the one thing about angel investing is to bear in mind that I would hope none of you are making quick decisions. Okay, so first of all, there's quite a bit of time, because when you think about it, the first thing that happens is you may come across a potential opportunity, and that may come through other people you know, through your network or your group, or it may be presented to you, and the first time you see it may be in a pitch. Actually, from there on, there's a huge amount of time you spend in getting to know the business. In other words, we call it due diligence, but it kind of sounds very, in many ways, more lofty than it is, because actually it's a huge amount of it is just really, really, really getting to know the team, really, really getting to know the business. You ask 1,000 questions, you send them away to bring you more information back. And you will have to really, really be very, very clear. And this is a two-way process whereby you're asking for a lot of questions, and you're actually asking the entrepreneur to respond and give you further information you need. And you may have many meetings in order to do that, and many interactions. And as a group, you may get together many times as well and discuss, well, do we think this is the right deal? Do we think they're giving us what we want? What are our areas of concern? What do we think are the big issues that are still sitting out there? And do we feel they've been sufficiently addressed? And what you're leading to at that point really is to an idea of hopefully the valuation. Remember, entrepreneurs will give you all kinds of valuations, and you'll know this for those of you investors. So there's a big negotiation around the valuation. The entrepreneur asks this, and you want to give that, and you're dealing with that as well. But in the end, you've got to be very satisfied on a number of levels, obviously, both about the team themselves, about their finances, about the state of the business, any outstanding issues, any outstanding money that may be tied up, and the whole sense that you understand enough about the opportunity and the sector. And quite frankly, when you're looking at new technologies and things, that can be very difficult indeed. So you may well need to call on the advice beyond what you have in your team. You may want to call on other colleagues, you know, and other contacts. I say call on experts, but to be honest, most angels are trying not to spend too much on external advice where they can, but sometimes you need to be absolutely sure. And so what you're leading up to really is, are we prepared to set out ahead of terms? Are we prepared to set out those first terms, and that we feel there's sufficient information and efficient understanding that we feel we know what we're investing in, we know who we're backing, and we have a sense of the growth and opportunity and market for this business. And you obviously can use a number of devices, and we've obviously got our legal supporters here in terms of kind of warrants and all kinds of things you can use ultimately in the shareholders agreement. But in the end, you need to be satisfied. And so if you consider all that process, you can be talking up to 6 months, and often at least 3 months before that money is going to be needed. So you're finding lots of ways why you don't have to give the money at first, and then ultimately you're deciding you will. And by the time you've done that and gone through the legal processes, and the money's actually, you know, going into the, you know, into the bank of the entrepreneur, that's definitely at least 3 months, and very often can be 6, and can be even more extenuated. So that's need to be borne in mind both by any entrepreneur, but most importantly by you as an investor, as to how the process works and at what point your money actually goes in. And you never, ever, ever put the money into in the entrepreneur until you've done all of that and you've got all the legal agreements clear and everything is watertight. And actually, if you do anything different anyway, you won't get your EIS relief, which is even another bad scene too. So I hope that was a long way of saying, Don, it's quite a long process, and yeah. But your money isn't tied up in that early stage at all.
No, but yeah, thank you, Jenny. I mean, and that's my experience too, really, between 3 and 6 months is pretty typical. And there is quite a lot to go through. And sort of the follow-on question really that's related to that is, given that amount of work, what's your sort of thoughts of the minimum size of investment that most angels in your experience should make?
Yes.
You know, obviously there's a range, you know, and look, I mean, I can give 2 numbers, minimum and maximum that I would see. But I've been testing,
yeah. So Don, I've been testing this out quite a bit, because actually we've been talking, especially talking with women in the early stage investment, because we have a number of groups now emerging where they are literally encouraging women to participate, but in smaller amounts initially as learning angels. So there are groups that will allow participation at 5K even at that point, which I think is kind of, I mean, if you've only got one spare 5K, that's actually probably not for you, angel investing, in that you'll get stuck there and you won't be able to follow on your deals and things. So you need to be setting aside little packets of 5K, you know, and think how many deals you want to do in a year. And bearing in mind that you might need another 5K for that business when it grows along. So that's the kind of money you need to be thinking about. But the point I was made about not being wealthy and being in a syndicate is that in a syndicate, you can have people who are putting in relatively small amounts of money, and you can have people putting in larger amounts of money, those who feel very confident, very experienced, or feel that this is definitely the deal for them. But in the early stages, I think, and I often say this to women, they go, oh, really? Is that okay then, just to put 5K in? And I say, well, if the syndicate is happy with that and the entrepreneur is happy to have a slightly more, you know, sizable number of investors to build the deal, then you can build 100K through a number of 5Ks and some 10s and 20s and 30s and whatever it is you want to do. But bearing in mind that, you know, actually being perfectly honest, a spare 5K is not going to do much good on its own. So it is about having that as a sort of strategy, starting small and building and growing as you grow, as you gain experience. And it's down to you really as a network and a syndicate, Don, about where you feel the starting point, the acceptable starting points are for people who are new to this, but where the expectation is of where they'll ultimately grow to, shall I say.
Yeah. And thank you, Jenny. And that 5K is really, I suppose, the minimum that I would say. On the whole, it sort of tends to be 5 to 10K minimum. And certainly in Dorset Business Angels, we've had a few 5Ks, but on the whole, they tend to be for inexperienced investors as first investment. And then perhaps they would follow on and they'd have available to invest over maybe a 3 or 4 year period, maybe 100,000, and the next year might be a 20,000 investment, and the third one, you know, even though they pay potentially a 50. But I would say the average in Dorset Business Angels is between 25 and 35, 50 maybe, is the average investment from the experienced angels.
That's where you want look to aspire to, because when you're confident, you can make those levels of investment, but it's worth thinking about that as you set aside what's going to be my angel investment pot.
Yep, great. Got a question from Frank. Frank, do you want to ask it, or shall I ask it for you? Go on, Frank, unmute yourself and ask the question yourself.
Hello, Jenny.
Hi, Frank.
Just a question about the sitting next to the crowdfunding people.
Yes.
Something you haven't mentioned in your talk. Can you tell us what UK BAA's view is when we have a joint approach from a crowdfunder?
Yes, yeah. I think I'll just probably worth just saying for anyone who's any doubt, there are quite significant differences between crowdfunding and angel investing. One of the first things is it's what we call passive investing, in that you actually aren't really, you learn about the business online, you put some money on, but actually you're not really part of that journey and story going forwards, in that you're not really able to add value to that investment or participate and be really supporting that business growth. Clearly, often people crowdfunding often put quite small amounts of money into, and again, you're part of a very big crowd, and your money is not, really significant, although maybe interesting. I think it's worth bearing in mind that crowdfunding has different structures in the way your money goes in. So as a shareholder, you often have different shares as well. And so your sense of alignment and opportunity is much less. But if you've got not much money, it's not a bad way to start. But if you think of the power of the crowd of it, in that they can raise quite significant sums, then that is a pot of money, which obviously can be part of a co-investment alongside angels. When I said about leveraging your money, I think there are two things. First of all, if an entrepreneur approaches you and says, I've got a crowdfunding campaign, I need some angel investment to go in first, I find that a very doubtful and worrying situation. The crowdfunding platforms have now said you have to have raised 30% of the deal in order to be exposed on our platform. So we get a lot of entrepreneurs knocking on our door saying, I need 30% of my deal now for a crowdfunding campaign. I say, so you really want to raise crowdfunding. You don't actually want angel money. You actually want some money to give you the platform to go and raise on crowdfunding. So do you want the added value, and do you want the opportunity of angel investing going forward? Because that's actually cart before horse, if you see what I mean. The other way around is when a company has tested itself quite thoroughly. And one of the good things about crowdfunding is often very good market testing on using crowdfunding money, and then comes for angel money as a co-investment or a further next phase investing after crowdfunding. I think that is very acceptable. You just need to be aware what structure is around that crowdfunding and how many people are engaged with it and how it's been set up, to make sure as an angel syndicate or as an angel, you're happy with that, with what that pot entails and what structures you have around you as the business grows. But I think it's very important to be clear about what this money means to the entrepreneur. Do they want angel money and all the added value and the opportunity to build and grow with the support of angel investment, and with you being in many ways the key players in this? Or are you fodder for their crowdfunding campaign?